And we're live. It's Raptors postgame. I'm JD Bunkus. He's Donnovan Bennett.
I am.
You're watching on Sportsnet.ca. And if you're watching this, you're probably a little pissed off. And I don't blame you one goddamn bit. Because I'm getting so tired of this to be coming on tonight and be doing this again. I don't even know what there's left to say.
You're that upset?
I am extremely upset. I'm not faking this level of upset.
You're that mad?
I am beyond that mad. And I'm feeling this Raptors fan base that's pouring in with the tweets right now. And then I'm hoping it'll join us again on the phone lines, 1-888-666-0590. But I'm tired of this same narrative.
I'm so surprised you're upset that the Bucks blew an 8-point lead, are now only up 2 on the Celtics in the third.
I'm also a little upset about that, but the Raptors had a chance to take care of business. It was a game where they knew they had to come in here and show out. Quiet the doubters. And I know it's only going to matter in the postseason. Like, let's be honest here. What the Raptors did tonight ultimately shouldn't matter. What should matter is how do you play in the postseason? But you're trying to set yourself up for success. You're trying to get back in the right habits. You're trying to show people and yourselves to a certain degree that you're a different Raptors team this time around, that this isn't the same old team, that this isn't the joke that I've seen over and over and over again in my timeline. Someone should tell the Raptors the playoffs haven't started yet. From Jason at Ultra OFU. Same old Raptors. Same old Raptors. Seeing that over and over and over again. How pathetic are these guys? Unreal. Regular season team, plain and simple, from Brew and Eddie. Team is scared, plain and simple, Frank Power. Your star player, your all-star, the emotional leader of this team, Kyle Lowry, pulls a Vince Carter and disappears to attend a university function the night before. Gets outplayed by Jose Calderon, the guy that he came in here to replace. 100-year-old Jose Calderon came in here with his inability to move side to side and cooked Kyle Lowry. Embarrassed Kyle Lowry. If you're going to go and you're going to watch Villanova play and you're going to go out and celebrate the night before you play the Cavaliers as you're desperately clinging to the 1 seed, you better not shoot what you shot tonight. You better not show up 2 of 11 from the field, be a complete ghost the entire game, score 5 points, and don't find a single other way to contribute. You better not be the, at one point, 4th best point guard on the floor in a game that had Jose Calderon and Fred VanVleet.
I believe he was 18% from the field and 14% from 3.
I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of showing up here and talking about the same thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Oh, they don't really have a bench. They don't really have a team around them. Oh, Jose Calderon? Oh, they don't have George Hill tonight. Jose Calderon should be a treat, should be a cakewalk. Finally, we're going to see the Raptors. They got something to play for. LeBron James killed them. Jonas Valanciunas couldn't play in this game. Got put in every single pick and roll situation on defense, got absolutely killed. But guess what? The guy actually showed up and tried. At least I watched Jonas Valanciunas try to play some defense. Try to show some heart on the offensive end and get them some buckets and some rebounds. Same old Raptors. Keep hearing it over and over and over again, and I hate coming on here tonight and doing this.
On the Free Association podcast, we talked about who the team is to beat in the East. Talked about Boston, their level of threat, Cleveland, and really LeBron, because he's had a easy go pass to the finals for the last 7 years, and the Raptors, team who had played the best over the largest sample, who had the most depth, and who had and still does have the number 1 overall seed. 1-888-666-0590, star 590.
At Ivan the Bows 89 tweets in, there's nothing to break down. Raptors need a new offensive and defensive scheme, and their rotations and substitutions need to stop resembling a high school team's.
Well, I believe
that's a little harsh.
That was the culture reset. I think they had the new offense.
Here's the
new
thing.
Defense.
Here's the thing about the cultural reset. You and I talked about this a lot while we were watching the game. When DeMar Carroll left town, he talked about a lack of trust that DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry had. And down the stretch in the third quarter, DeMar DeRozan started to turn this game into shooting long twos, And that was actually the most effective DeMar DeRozan was all night. He got to the rim at the very end of the quarter, but for the most part, he played away from the basket offensively. For the first half of that basketball game, DeMar DeRozan wasn't there either. Stars hadn't been there. Stars weren't stars. But it really resembled the postseason for the Raptors because not only did Kyle Lowry not show up, not only did it take DeMar DeRozan a while to be the same guy he's been for the last few seasons, which is the long two shooter that can create for himself in isolation. But when the Raptors did find guys, their main go-to three-point shooters, there were missed opportunities yet again. And I know that if you look at the box score tonight, it's going to tell you, CJ Miles was 3 of 5 from deep. It wasn't so bad. Sorry, 2 of 5 from deep. Wasn't so bad. Serge Ibaka, same thing, 2 of 5 from deep. What's wrong with that? There was a sequence in this game early on where they found CJ Miles in the second quarter wide open for a three. He bricks it. It goes the other way. Cleveland knocks down a three in transition. Go back again. Ibaka misses a three. Goes back the other way. Cleveland knocks down a three in transition. They keep trying to play Cleveland's game. They keep trying to be the cultural reset, the group that takes the third most threes in the NBA but only knocks down the 17th most threes or shoots the 17th best percentage. And it's starting to catch up with them. Eventually, I don't want to have those Patrick Patterson heart palpitations where we're seeing those wide open looks given to you on a platter and you brick them only for your bad transition defense to get exposed the other way and for Cleveland to ring it up on you.
Well, I mean, you could say they're trying to play Cleveland's game. We were complaining that they weren't catching up with the rest of the league in the offseason, that they had to play a different game.
No, I
agree. That
was
a game that had them on pace. We'll see what happens because they look like they're not going to win another game, but had them on pace to win 60 games. So, I mean, we can't at one side of our face say, man, these threes aren't falling. Stop taking them. But on the other side say, well, the league is shooting more threes. You need to get with the times. And so I say all that to say, because if they handle their business against Boston tomorrow, the tenor of this conversation, of these tweets, hashtag SNRaps, to the calls we're about to get, 1-888-666-0590, is totally different. But having seen what you just saw against a team that at some point they're probably going to have to go through to get to a final, something the franchise has never done, does this change your perception of the heights of this team? Because you were one of the first to get on board and say
it's different.
The Cleveland group that was put together after the trade deadline has to prove themselves to Toronto, that LeBron is 33 and great, but he doesn't have a lot of help, and Toronto is the team who has the conch. Has the last 72 hours changed that perception?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How could it not? It changed after the Raptors lost the first time to Cleveland. The Raptors had to prove that they could beat the Cleveland Cavaliers because they haven't been able to go into that gym and do anything, ever. That's not their place of business. That's not where they operate. That's not where they play well. Of course it's changed. Of course the Raptors have things to prove. I don't know what happened the night after they lost to Oklahoma City when they started bitching about the refereeing. When everybody got tossed from that game and the Raptors had a laugh, but they snapped their win streak at 12. That the Raptors looked at that and decided that they could basically, that was good. They had a good season. They were going to finish first. They're going to walk into the playoffs. They're going to be the favorites. Everybody was talking about them. They wanted to be talked about so badly. Talk about our Raptors and how they don't get the respect that they've deserved from winning 12 regular season games in a row. Here we stand again, potentially heading into that Boston game tomorrow. Again, you're just hoping that somehow the Bucks roll over Boston. A Boston team that's still hanging, still fighting, has won their last 6 games, is taking care of their business without Kyrie Irving. They got a guy in the lineup today I'd never heard of before starting at point guard because Terry Rozier is out as well. Never heard of this guy. He's playing for the Celtics. He's starting for them. I'm reading that Al Horford is going to have to play minutes at point guard for the Celtics tonight because they're so beat up. And they're scrapping and clawing to try to get that 1 seed. The Raptors lose to the Thunder, and they just decided, okay, whatever, let's just pack up the season. Everybody decided, you know what, we're good. DeRozan just decided, I'm good on scoring. I'm good on getting to the basket. I'm just going to be a facilitator now. I'm just going to pass the ball around and hope that maybe if you need me, I'll be in the mid-range again, chucking up twos.
You don't actually believe that.
I don't know what happened.
Do you want a chance to qualify that?
No, I'm saying I don't know what
listeners, viewers are going to actually think you believe it.
I'm telling you that
actually think that they decided to pack up
no,
the season.
but listen, this is all hyperbole, but I'm just telling you that something happened after that streak was lost. Some level of swagger, some modicum of swagger was completely lost. They're not playing defense anymore. They become a middle of the pack to bad defense. They've been a bad defense against elite units all year. We talked about this last time. They're 29th in the NBA against top 10 defenses. And there are factors in that. You don't know when it was a back-to-back. You don't know who you had that night, what the opposing schedule was, how much of that is on the road. But still, you're not playing well against top 10 defenses. You have to show that you can prove to get some stops. You still have things to prove. And for a couple of guys in DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, yes, star players in the league that have made all-star teams, have played for Team USA, have gone deep in the playoffs, but ultimately have come up short in those spots and have talked about how nobody mentions the good games that we've had. It's because of nights like this.
But you feel there's credence into that argument. You've argued that the Raptors don't get enough respect by the American media, by even some national media in this country. So you feel there's some credence to that. And you mentioned stars, and I want to touch on that. Interested to hear what you have to say about this. Interested to hear what our viewers and listeners have to say about this. Jose Calderon versus Kyle Lowry. You think that's going to be a one-sided matchup? It was. One point guard went for 19, 4 and 4 on 63% shooting and was left wide open, even though he's a 47% three-point shooter. The other went for 5, 5 and 3 on 18% shooting from the floor, 12% shooting for three. He had 5 points. He had 7 combined turnovers and fouls. The guy who went off was not the all-star. It was the guy who was bought out a couple years by a bad team. I say all this to say, and people are going to bring up the Kyle Lowry issues in the playoffs, and he's healthy. There isn't really a good excuse now. How much of this, of the stars playing like stars, is about having a superstar? So Jose Calderon's not a better player than Kyle Lowry, but in a one-game sample, and really two, because he's barbecued the Raptors twice in a row, in a two-game sample in a vacuum, when LeBron James is feeding you off of a hot plate, then Jose Calderon, who couldn't get minutes for the Los Angeles Lakers when they didn't have injury problems, can all of a sudden be a useful player because superstars make everyone better. They drag everyone to at least a medium level, and they make stars out of people who were afterthoughts. And as much as we want to talk about their transition defense or their struggles on offense or JV in the pick and roll, how much of this entire conversation of what the ceiling of this team is about the fact that in the NBA, aside from the Pistons and the Mavericks, arguably, who's the last team that won big without at least one superstar? The Warriors have 2. The Cavs have 1 that's the greatest of our lifetime. All of the teams that have won, the Heat had 2.5, kind of. And we could talk about change in systems and who should play in this scenario. For me, the real question is, can the Raptors get over the hump, whether it's Cleveland or Boston, without that transcendent type A player? Not a multiple all-star, a superstar, a first ballot, even though that's not really a conversation in basketball, Hall of Famer, who makes everything that much easier for everyone else.
All I know is DeMar DeRozan was in the MVP conversation throughout this season. He'd have put together an incredible year. He had played extremely well. Kyle Lowry was a advanced statistics all-star yet again.
But every MVP conversation person is not created equal. Isaiah Thomas was in the MVP conversation a year ago.
My point is that you watch a game like tonight and you see Kyle Lowry disappear and you see DeMar DeRozan disappear for long stretches. Again, Kyle Lowry carried them in the last matchup against the Cavs. He was the only one doing anything. And tonight he just was completely he just vacated the joint. He just didn't play. And DeMar DeRozan, again, didn't show up until the third quarter. And even when he did show up, he was showing up in a way that the Cavaliers were very happy to live with. My point in this is that it's hard to watch a game like that. And no one's LeBron James, right? No one's LeBron James. He's his own entity. He's arguably the greatest player who ever lived. But it's hard to watch those two guys next to LeBron and say, wait, there was a conversation where an MVP, people wanted DeMar DeRozan ahead of LeBron James. You're right. I don't know. I'm having a harder and harder time to believe it because as we're getting closer and as you're seeing playoff rotations, and as you're seeing a team like the Cavs tightening things up as they get closer, and the Raptors loosening things up, and you're unclear as to what the rotations are going to be, and you're unclear as to who's going to be in what spot or who's going to come out when, and how long is it going to take till they get to Fred VanVleet. Why are they using C.J. Miles to try to defend LeBron James? Why is JV out here for so long when it's very apparent that the Cavs are getting an open three-point look every time he's on the floor? There's real question marks as we get close as to whether the bench is going to be sustainable, whether your stars are going to be able to do something, and whether this team can actually play defense. I want to hit on this because I've been meaning to get to it. Because, again, you can tweet us at #SNRaps, at JD Bunkis, at Donnovan Bennett. I'm pretty sure there's a correlation in Lowry's drop in play and Villanova's championship run. Please discuss tonight. #SNRaps. I'm going to give that guy credit. I lost it in the feed in a minute. But what do you make of that? Because to me, it reminded me, I joked with you about Vince Carter, but it actually reminded me a little bit more of Kyle Lowry getting hurt at the All-Star break last year, where he went out and played golf. And he played in the All-Star game with a wrist injury, and then he was out for extended time. And it's like, you know what? That probably didn't cause the wrist injury. You probably needed to have it cleaned up anyways, but the optics of it are quite bad, especially to this fan base. And maybe you weren't hungover. Maybe that's not the reason that this happened. But damn, it sure doesn't look good.
I mean, the difference is he got hurt doing something that wasn't his job, and then he didn't disclose the injury in an expedient fashion. I think that's the difference. I just don't want to play the result. When I watched the national championship last night, I didn't think, what's Kyle Lowry doing there at that point? And if he went off for 25 and a win, I wouldn't have said he probably shouldn't have gone. So now that he has 5 and 5, I don't want to retroactively say that was a bad decision when that's something that he's done before in the past. He went, 3 years ago or when Villanova robbed UNC of a title. And he went last night. To me, that's, as Tim and Sid would say, that's a make or relax. It's not that much of an issue because I didn't have an issue with it 24 hours ago.
If you were given the option before Kyle Lowry was going to get on that plane, if someone had said to you, hey, Donovan, you get to be the person that decides whether Kyle Lowry goes and flies across the country to San Antonio to watch his team play until 11:30 at night. And again, I know basketball players stay up late. The hours mean a little bit different because they peak later. But we know about rest and recovery. Would you have said, I got no problem with Kyle Lowry getting on that plane and Kyle Lowry going out, and I'm sure Kyle Lowry having maybe a beverage or two with his coach Jay Wright, who celebrates his second national championship? You don't think, if that's your choice, if you're Kyle Lowry's advisor, you don't decide in that moment, hey, Kyle, maybe sit this one out. Maybe just watch this one on TV and celebrate with your teammates.
Well,
you're not on the team anymore. You don't go to Villanova. You're not a college student. You get paid $100 million
with it because guys stay in their city and go out all the time. And I don't think Kyle is less motivated to have a great game against the Cavs because Villanova's
you don't think it's draining to travel between San Antonio and back all in one day, watch a game until midnight, see a team celebrate, stay out with them a little later, and then have to travel back and be back with the Raptors for shoot-around that afternoon, field media questions, and then play a tough opponent like LeBron James?
Well, I'm almost certain he traveled private.
Sure.
He's not waiting in the Porter Lounge drinking ginger ale. He was there and back faster than me or you would have. And if he was here, he probably would have been up watching the game anyways. And who knows if he was going to bed. I don't have an issue when I see NBA players the night before they play the Atlanta Hawks, Karl Anthony Towns and Simmons playing Fortnite and making fun of the Hawks and saying, oh, we can play another round because it's just the Hawks.
I think there's a big difference of being, when you go out at night, you go out and you have to move around and you have to do stuff. Do you feel different than when you hang out in bed and watch Netflix and you stay up late?
He wasn't out in a club. And the Los Angeles, the Los Angeles, well, we don't know that he was. And the Los Angeles Clippers were painting the town red. They turned up in Liberty Village and they put it on the Raptors. So to me, it's retroactively, I don't have an issue with it. And I wouldn't have personally stopped him. Having said that, Villanova's in the championship game next year. Might be a different conversation because I think you earn that trust.
At Athletes Unfiltered tweeted in, there seems to be a lot of angst on Twitter. Hope you guys can provide a glimmer of hope. things seem to be falling apart fast. I really don't have that glimmer right now. The glimmer is I don't think it can get much worse. Then again, who knows? Maybe they can find new ways. Maybe the Raptors can find new ways. AJ at Azon798. I don't know what happened to DeRozan's three-point shooting, but he needs to get back into the gym. I don't think it's a matter of DeRozan not taking threes or practicing threes. But I'll say this. Since the All-Star game, DeMar DeRozan's shooting 25% from deep, and he's shooting more three-pointers than he was pre-All-Star game when he shot a semi-respectable 33%. The three-point shooting has fallen off a cliff. I don't know what's happened to it either. He's completely regressed to the old DeRozan. He was 0 for 2 from 3 tonight. He had a wide-open look at one when they really needed it in the second half, and he didn't even come close. He clanged it off. He was shooting it from a 90-degree angle, and he almost put it over the entire rim, clanged it off backside rim. Pretty ugly shot. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how much of it is mental with DeMar DeRozan, because I always believe you can't have that shooting form. You can't be such a good free throw shooter. You can't be so good from one step in and then have that barrier of a three-point line make that world of a difference. But how much do you think DeRozan's three-point shooting is going to be a factor in the playoffs? Because I actually think it's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had that blistering streak where we thought he's a different player, and now he's reverting back to the player that he's been for the bulk of his career. The leopard doesn't change its spots. I think this game was bigger than DeRozan. I think he did a good job facilitating for others. I think the biggest issue is when LeBron James was not on the floor tonight, the Toronto Raptors were -2. You're not going to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers if you don't, not just a plus, a great plus in the minutes that LeBron James is not on the floor, and especially in the playoffs where the amount of minutes he's not going to be on the floor, assuming you face him, are going to be even less, if any at all, when we're talking about a closeout game. That, to me, that's the biggest issue. And LeBron now, who's passed MJ for most consecutive games in double figures with 869. Again, the difference is LeBron never has the game that Kyle Lowry just had. It doesn't happen. And Lowry has them every once in a while in the regular season. He's been very consistent this year. But he has them more often than not in the month of April and frequently in the month of April when there's a postseason logo underneath the basket. And so I think the alarming thing, aside from the bench not being able to create their own shot, aside from JV not being able to guard the perimeter, aside from DeRozan not hitting his threes or getting to the line.
Or getting to the cup. Again, his first bucket at the basket was in the final possession of the third quarter.
I mean, his first basket was with 4:20 left in the second quarter. I think the biggest issue is, and it's like he falls off a cliff. When we started doing these post-game shows, one of our takeaways was, we've got good Kyle.
Yeah.
We haven't been doing them for that long. And all of a sudden, we have bad Kyle.
I will say this about the bench. The bench does bear some responsibility here, and they played overall, I thought, okay. But what I mean by that is, yes, Kyle Lowry was certainly the main function for the Raptors' loss tonight, in my opinion. The secondary function was that, again, they could not find a home for JV on the defensive end. That LeBron James knew where he was every single time. He was either picking on OG Anunoby or he's picking on Jonas Valanciunas. It's not a great thing that you have two guys on the floor that all of a sudden make DeMar DeRozan look defensively viable, that you're not attacking DeMar DeRozan. But you're right. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, you got this sense, okay, the Raptors are going to close this gap before LeBron James comes in because you've got the bench mob versus a group headed by, offensively, Jordan Clarkson and Kyle Korver coming hard off of screens. Something that you should be able to adjust to. And they got out in transition. Pascal Siakam missed a couple of layups. I thought Fred VanVleet played incredible again. I don't think that you can play Fred VanVleet enough right now, which, again, is shocking considering my feelings about Fred VanVleet at the beginning of the season. But now they're completely different. Play more Fred VanVleet. Play more DeLon Wright in that matchup because, again, he fits. He fits in that game against the Cavs. I like the things DeLon Wright did for you.
14 minutes for DeLon Wright tonight.
I think he's got to play a little bit more. But yes, the bench came in and you thought, all right, fourth quarter, settle things down. It's okay that you don't have Kyle Lowry out here. It's okay that you don't stagger things because the bench mob has proven that they can do things on their own, and especially with no LeBron James. When LeBron James came back in the basketball game around the 7:30 mark, I think it was, the Raptors only cut the lead by one, and the Cavaliers had the basketball. LeBron James went right down the floor and got those back. So yes, it's a whole bunch of different things, and that's why I'm having a really hard time coming up with the positive here. Because again, I think that the Raptors are going to end up in a series with Cleveland. I don't know when that's going to be right now, but I do think that the road ends with Cleveland. Yes, you can make the case that they're playing poorly enough right now that you could see a scenario where the Bucks beat them, or where the Heat beat them, or where the Celtics beat them, or anybody in the Eastern Conference for that matter. I won't laugh you out of the room with that opinion. But to me, you're probably going to end up here facing these Cleveland Cavaliers. And they just continue to be a matchup nightmare. The Raptors continue to be shuffling through these rotations, looking for answers, looking for guys. And I was hoping that Dwayne Casey wasn't like really going to show his hand tonight when I was thinking about it, saying, all right, it's still the regular season. Don't throw your best look at the Cavaliers. Try to find a way to hang in this game without giving to LeBron James every little piece of data. But it looks like he's got it figured out.
Yeah, he's got the bigs figured out in that high screener role, and you were getting very agitated. And I understand it, and it's going to be a divisive conversation. We've already seen it online. Keep your tweets coming. Mm-hmm. What do you do with JV defensively?
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you continue to play him and trade his twos for threes? JV tonight, 17 points, 10 rebounds. Serge tonight, the other big, 16 points, 12 rebounds. And so the math is against you. We've seen it for the last 2 years when the Raptors play the Cavs. You can't trade threes for twos. It doesn't make mathematical sense.
Especially when they're wide open threes.
Correct, which is why the Raptors are trying to shoot more threes to balance that math. Here's the issue. You take JV out. You play Serge at the 5 or play Serge less. I think we both know Pascal is going to get his minutes. But who is filling those minutes? And forget about trading threes for twos. At some point, it's threes for zeros. Jakob Poeltl, 4 points, 2 rebounds. Lucas Nogueira, 0 points, 3 rebounds. Let's say you want to play small and go with CJ Miles as a super stretch 4. He's struggling to guard threes, never mind fours. 8 points, 3 rebounds. And so the question is, if JV is not playing and giving you those twos, giving you those floaters, giving you the turnover the right shoulder, I know you're giving up threes, but you kind of have to roll the dice and hope those threes miss because no one else, as far as bigs, are giving you anything offensively.
One is I think that you have to clearly get offense from Serge Ibaka and Pascal Siakam. So I don't think that the solution is continue to play Jonas Valanciunas. If they give you an opportunity...
Well, Serge gave you 16, Pascal gave you 10.
Right,
you'll
take
that most
nights.
If
they give you an opportunity where Tristan Thompson is in the game, you can throw JV in there. But Casey has to be smarter with his utilization of JV. Because I hear what you're saying in terms of when the offense dries up, it's tempting to go to this 7-footer who's got nice touch around the basket and is improving as a shooter and is improving as a role player. And by role, I mean to the basket, not as on the outside, on the fringes. But he can't hang. And again, over and over and over again, what you saw was the Raptors, if they were missing a 3 with JV on the floor, the transition defense was all-time bad. And second of all, JV got put into every single action that the Cleveland Cavaliers went out there with for the first 2 halves. Every time JV was on the floor, they decided to attack him. And all of a sudden, Jeff Green is looking good because he's playing against Jonas Valanciunas and he can't hang with him. All of a sudden, Jonas Valanciunas is doing the bad JV, the JV that you don't really like to see, where he's running out, doing that hand up, like running, but he's 4 feet from the shooter because he's not quick enough to get there. He has to come as a help defender to LeBron James. LeBron James too smart for that. He knows somebody's wide open, somebody who can shoot a 3. You know who has to score for you? Serge Ibaka needs to knock down some open 3-point shots. Pascal Siakam needs to prove that handle and that touch around the basket translates into a big game like against the Cavaliers. And most importantly, as Sonny K tweets in, Little Aristotle, at Little Aristotle, Lowry, our all-star, in quotes, has gone missing in the 2 most important games of the season. That's why we lost. You lost because Kyle Lowry didn't show up. You're asking me where's the scoring supposed to come from? It's supposed to come from Kyle Lowry. The Raptors always knew when they had the cultural reset that meant more Kyle Lowry threes, more Kyle Lowry buckets. It meant DeRozan stretching out to the 3-point line, him adding things to his game, being smarter, not falling into old habits and going to the game where he's in the middle of the floor and using his brilliant footwork to take those long twos against J.R. Smith. It meant attacking the basket and stretching out your offense and being smarter and moving the basketball not when it made sense, not just to be passive. So I think when you ask me, where does the offense come against those starters? The offense has to come from your 2 stars to begin with, the third guy who makes the third most money on the team in Serge Ibaka. And then after that, that's where the role players all have to be doing their part, chipping in. Miles open threes, Fred VanVleet open threes, DeLon Wright penetration and kick and finishing at the basket with his length and with his herky-jerky style. You can't rely on Jonas Valanciunas. You can't just simply say, well, nothing else is working other than him, so let's just leave him in there even though the defense is killing us. They have to find a better formula because, as you said, the formula with JV has been rolled out twice. And the formula with JV continues to come back with one result that is consistent, and that's that he cannot match up defensively with the small ball units of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
But coming off the bus, the Cavs are going to score. And so you're going to need to get to 110, 115, 120 to catch up with them, whether you're playing good defense or not. And you talk about Pascal and Serge playing and scoring. They played a combined 52 minutes. They scored a combined 26 points. They didn't play terribly. They played pretty good. They're pretty decent. You'll take that from them on most nights. And as much as you mentioned Jonas being on Kyle and DeMar, and obviously that's clear, part of the culture reset was, listen,
defense.
In the playoffs, we can't trust these guys.
Yep.
So the scoring has to come from somewhere else. It has to be balanced. And I'm looking at everyone else, and I'm not really sure who can get their own shot other than Jonas Valanciunas. And so these are going to be the conversations we continue to have. It's not just how they're playing or the results. The style of play is going to be an indicator on how well this team can perform against a team in the Cavs who ask you a lot of tough questions.
We're going to take a phone call. It's from Steve. Again, if you want to be like Steve,
what up, Steve?
1-888-666-0590. Hey, Steve,
what's
up, man?
Wait, hold on, Steve.
Wait.
JD, how you doing? Because we're going to get from the callers, hey, man, guys, how are you doing? How was your day, JD? Let them know.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good up until I watched the Raptors get their teeth kicked in for 46 minutes against the Cavaliers.
My day was
there was
outstanding,
a couple bright
Steve.
spots.
Yeah, there were.
That's good, boys.
All
That's
right,
good.
so don't ask us how we're doing. Get to the call, Steve.
All right. So it's been one of my opinions for a long time with this team. I've been as a huge fan, I've been a hater for a while. But my whole thing is Lowry, especially in the playoffs, has had a tendency to shrink, and that puts a lot of onus on DeMar to try to create his own shot. But we've noticed in these last few games and all season long when they play big-name teams, the whistles go away a little bit, and they're going to do that even more in the playoffs. I just have an issue seeing this team score big buckets when they have a tendency to drive into traffic, drive into doubles, and try to put up shots expecting there to be a whistle, when for the last 4 playoff series, we've noticed that's never happened, and it's starting to happen in crunch time in big games against big opponents. So that's my take. I have a lot of issues with the offense in the last 2 minutes of the game, and it's just been a kind of thing that I've been thinking about, and I just don't see any way that this team constructed currently with Lowry and DeRozan driving into mismatches and kind of putting up tough shots that, to their credit, they make a lot of the time, but they're not going to get and ones in the playoffs. They're not going to get the whistle. And that cost us 4 years ago when Lowry drove into triple coverage down the lane trying to tie the game with 5 seconds left. Like, that's just a shot they can't take, and they seem to make those hero decisions late, and I just don't know how that's going to last.
Here's what I'll say. I think there's a difference between the two players in terms of who needs to rely on the calls in the postseason. And thanks for the call, Steve. It's a good one. I don't think that DeRozan and Lowry are the same guy in that situation. DeRozan does have to get to the basket. DeRozan does have to get to the free throw line. Kyle's primary function, I think, on the drive has to be the kick. If he can get those sneaky buckets where he scoops it underneath guys and he puts it high glass and in, good. But yes, I also get frustrated by watching Kyle Lowry try to draw foul calls, especially late in ball games when he doesn't have a real history of getting them. He's sub 6 feet tall. It's very, very hard for him to initiate contact at the basket and get the respect of the referees.
Well, and I think it's funny watching Jalen Brunson last night, and he didn't really get his offensively. And I thought a lot about Kyle Lowry. And Lowry, especially in the playoffs, struggles against what? Length. George Hill gave him issues. Richardson in Miami gave him issues at time until he started to get it going when he saw a little bit more of Goran Dragic, but they were trading baskets back and forth. And how many times we saw it tonight, whether it was Hood who was guarding him or LeBron got him in a switch, how many times did he get some penetration, get in the lane, and then did his pump fake, tried to use his butt to get separation, but ultimately was just looking to be bailed out and kick it to someone and allowed them to create the shot. And the difference is DeRozan is getting into the lane and he's facilitating for others and kicking it out for wide open three-point shots. Kyle Lowry's getting into the lane and is running out of options, running out of ideas, and kicking it out just because he's picked up his dribble. And it's not the Steve Nash, I'm in the lane and I'm doing the Gretzky circle around the basket trying to find guys open. We're seeing that more so from Fred VanVleet than we are Kyle Lowry. And again, I wonder if the book is out. If he doesn't have confidence in that pull-up transition three, which he didn't tonight, had one that would have cut the lead from 8 to 5 in a big spot and turned it down, he struggles to finish when he's being guarded by length. We saw it tonight.
Yeah, he's having a tougher time figuring out that secondary way to score. And tonight, what was frustrating was the three-point shot wasn't falling. But usually what Kyle Lowry does and why he's such an excellent player is even if the shot is off, he does find other ways to contribute. He is an excellent rebounder. He does dig in on defense. He does take charges. He is a good passer. He finds other ways. And tonight, he just didn't find the other way, which is why when people pour in all these tweets that we have tonight about Lowry and Villanova and the way that he looked, especially, we noted it late. Teams down double digits. They get a transition opportunity, and Kyle Lowry is wide open for three. He's wide open. It's right there for a transition three. His favorite shot in basketball. And he throws it off into the corner, and it doesn't result into anything. And he didn't look himself.
And then what happened the next trip down?
He goes down and he forces a wildly contested transition
early
three
in the shot
that
clock
had no chance.
Without numbers. It's almost like he felt like he had to make up for the fact that he didn't take the obvious three when it was there. And
he just wasn't himself tonight. And I like to hope that that's going to be different. But again, this is a guy who's shot what in the playoffs throughout his career from three? 31%. 31% from three.
DeMar DeRozan-like numbers.
DeMar DeRozan, if he can shoot 31% from three right now, I'll take it because dude's shooting 25%. I'm back to completely zero confidence with DeRozan three. Like, I'll say this too, and this was pointed out by our buddy Brennan, who, again, as you mentioned, has perfect attendance, Brennan Delaney. He's like, when Ibaka plays well, the team plays bad. Why can't this team just get good at the same time? I agree with that tweet. I thought the same thing. We kept talking during the game. Serge looks okay. Serge is playing good defense. Serge is actually picking his shots okay. Very minimal mistakes on the offensive end for Serge tonight. He missed a couple of bunnies. He missed a couple of open looks from deep. But ultimately, I thought Serge was effective. It is a very strange correlation as of late. It's like the Blue Jays going back 2 seasons. Like we get one season back in the day where you get an amazing pitching season, and then the very next you get a hitting season. You never get them to match up. And I feel that way right now with Serge Ibaka. I completely agree with that assessment.
Milwaukee Bucks up 6. 7:21.
Go Bucks. We should just do the play-by-play for the Bucks game the rest of the way out because that seems to be the only way the Raps are going to hold on to this seeding right now is if the Bucks win and they keep the Celtics held off.
Well, I also think you want the Bucks to win so that they get out of that 8 spot and you get Miami and not Milwaukee. Because I don't.
It's a double value.
I think if the way the two teams are playing going into the postseason, I think the Bucks like the way they match up.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of length that they have on the perimeter with Middleton.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. See, I'm sorry. I feel like I wore you down. I didn't mean to be negative all night, but it's hard to be positive. And now I heard that sigh, and that's all I wanted from you. That's all I wanted from you, Donovan. Like just one. Yeah, I got nothing. Because it's all depressing.
But you know what?
Bring up that song. Actually, I don't think we can do that on the webcast. That's a radio thing. Never mind. Don't bring up any songs right now until we figure that whole situation out. But I was thinking of the Simon and Garfunkel. It was the "Hello, Darkness, my old friend." As soon as that kicks in, like that's how I was feeling. You ever watch Arrested Development?
No.
You would Job. He sits on the couch and cues that music, and he's just staring forward. That's how I felt at the end of this Raptors game tonight. Like I got no solutions. I got no silver linings. I'm empty.
We do know the Raptors are a very different team at home. 3-game stretch in the friendly confines of the Air Canada Centre. They handle business against the Celtics, and I think that's a bit of fool's gold because they're still without some of their big stars. It's not going to be
If the Raptors lose tonight to a Celtics team that is starting, what's his name at point
tonight.
guard?
It's not after midnight. Tomorrow.
If the Raptors play them, who's this point guard for the Celtics? I saw it today. It came over the news wire, and I did not know who that guy was. But they got no Terry Rozier. They got no Marcus Smart, no Kyrie Irving.
Well, they have Marcus Morris. That's all they need.
Yeah, I guess. But if the Raptors lose to that team, that Celtics team tomorrow in a must-win game after that performance, then it's just like, I don't even know why we're doing this anymore. Like, why let's just punt on the rest of these shows. Let's everybody just shut it down. We don't need it anymore. It's over. Season's over. You lose that game. I'm sorry.
But if you handle business at home, Boston, you play well. Indiana, welcome back, Corey Joseph.
Dude.
We're going to hit you with an L. Orlando, they're trying to lose. Then the game against Miami is a virtual exhibition because you're probably playing them in the first round.
Yeah, see our guy Brennan again. There are positives. Cleveland is still in third, and Boston is losing by 8. Yes, but from that game, it's really hard to scrape one. Actually, you know what? I will have one positive from that game tonight. Yes, I got one.
Maybe Lowry threw the game because he wants Cleveland to stay in third.
Honestly, I'm so here for that conspiracy theory because I don't want to live in a world where it's the opposite, where the actuality is true, that he's slowing down, and it's really hard for a guy who's 6 feet tall to assert himself in the playoffs. He got Chris Paul disease.
Down tanking is what they're doing.
Oof. Yeah. My positive from tonight is that Fred VanVleet, even though the box score will tell you 3
Steady
of 10,
Freddie,
because his size getting to the basket, I just like that Fred VanVleet doesn't seem to deviate his style of play. 3 of 10 from the floor, but was actually attacking the basket, knocked down a few of his open looks from 3, was 3 of 5, just played with overall confidence. I just always feel good when Fred VanVleet's in the game.
Well, I said to you in the second half, is it a bad thing?
We got to get to Eric Smith. Sorry, save that, because
right.
Eric Smith's got to run. Hey, Eric Smith, radio voice of the Raptors, joins us now. Hey, Eric, what's up, man?
Not much, guys.
So I guess the first question is, what was the atmosphere like in the locker room after tonight? Because I can't imagine that the Raptors are holding their heads very high.
Yeah, no, it was pretty low key for the most part. I mean, they're still saying all the right things, in terms of the confidence and whatnot, not wanting to, show or admit any dents in the armor. But yeah, it wasn't exactly jovial to say the least. And I think it's one of those things where they're just trying to, keep the fingers crossed that they can figure things out and get back on track tomorrow. Because nobody's going to, I think, admit, JD, that things are slip sliding here. But clearly that's the case with the lead potentially down to 1. Based on what happens in about 30 minutes or so with the Celtics and Bucks. So, it wasn't good. And it certainly wasn't a good showing for the most part tonight. And the final score certainly was a lot closer than what the game actually was. It didn't reflect, I think, how Cleveland controlled things from pretty much the midway point of the second quarter on.
Bucks by 3 with 5 minutes left. Continue to refresh Sportsnet.ca.
That's the positive
for the
tonight,
latest.
is the Bucks are still winning, Eric.
Eric, we'll have you kind of be the judge and break the tie because, as usual, me and JD disagree. Any issue with Kyle Lowry going to San Antonio for the national championship last night?
I'm going to say no, based on the fact that he was back last night, or at least early this morning, because he was at shoot-around this morning. Now, does that mean that you're tired from the long flight and everything else? But at the same time, if you're flying directly there in a private charter, watch the game, come directly back on a private charter, I mean, how tired are you? How much worse is it if you're going out in Cleveland potentially till who knows what time? Maybe in your room by 11. Maybe you're out on the streets and hanging out and going to wherever till 3. I don't know. I honestly don't know what he would have done socially otherwise. So I don't have a major problem with it, but there's no doubt that it doesn't look good that the night after you go over there for the national championship, you have arguably your worst game of the season and couldn't seem to buy a shot. I think maybe the only thing that saves Kyle a little bit from that narrative, maybe, is that there were a lot of poor performances across the board tonight. He certainly probably was at the top of the list and set that tone, but I think you can look at a number of guys that struggled in this game, and the team collectively, yet again, just not being able to stop anybody defensively. And even in spite of Lowry's poor night, you still were allowing Cleveland to run roughshot over you and bury triples from distance and bury you, in that second quarter before you kind of made a bit of a game of it before halftime rolled around. And just not, again, as the night went on, just unable to really get any sort of consistent effort or consistent stop. So to me, again, I fully acknowledge it's not a good look based on how things turned out. But, had Toronto somehow won this game and Lowry still played poorly, would it even be a storyline right now? The Raptors won. Yeah, but Kyle played bad and he shouldn't have gone. To me, it speaks a greater volume, I think, that the Raptors, yet again, as a team, did not play well. And I would say that's been the biggest issue over the last couple of weeks, is that collectively on both ends of the floor, this team has seemingly lost some of its mojo in terms of being able to stop teams, let alone go punch for punch with teams on the offensive end.
Yeah, dude, if they had won this game and Lowry played bad, it would have been a bigger celebration, because it's like, man, imagine what the Raptors could do without a hungover Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Like, they would be amazing.
Yep.
So, yeah, again, I agree with that. The optics of it are really bad. Maybe it didn't have anything to do with his performance, but I still think for a fan base that is really in a tough spot right now, you're looking for anything and you're frustrated, and so that just really doesn't help the psyche of the fans.
Now, I will say this as well, JD, just to sort of cut you off there.
Go ahead.
It's somewhat similar. And again, listen, acknowledging that it's not a great look, acknowledging that it was for personal reasons, not professional, but it's somewhat akin to what's exactly happening to the Raptors, to me, not that it matters to me because I'm just have to sit there and talk, but what's happening to the team tonight. They're in a different city, taking a late night flight, getting into the city that they're going to play next at a very late time, probably 1:30ish or so by the time they land, after 2 o'clock by the time they get home, and they got to play the Celtics tomorrow night. The difference is that's a game on the schedule for professional reasons, not for personal reasons. But essentially, it's like he played a back-to-back. Now, I guess the flip side of that argument could be,
you
though,
don't want to play
that
back-to-back.
not only is it a personal reason, it's a now, in some senses, a back-to-back-to-back because he's doing the late-night flight on 2 straight nights and the rest or lack thereof, et cetera. So, again, it's not a great look, but I don't know that was the reason why Toronto lost this game. It might have played a factor into why Kyle didn't play well, but I don't know if it's the ultimate reason why Toronto lost, because there were a lot of people that you could be pointing the finger at tonight. And this team has certainly had, slippage over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Hey, Eric, I know you got to run, so we really appreciate you fitting us in, man. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
man. Yeah, I know that it's going to be something that's written on Twitter. It's been a lot on Twitter tonight. Again, the most common jokes on Twitter tonight have been, tell the Raptors the playoffs haven't started yet, or the playoffs came early for the Raptors. I even saw one that the Cavs are going to try to tank to the 8 seed to try to face the Raptors. But the other one is asking us over and over and over again to talk about Kyle Lowry going out last night, because people believe that stuff. And I'm with you and Eric to an extent. I'm with you guys to the extent that, hey, this guy travels a lot. He stays up late a lot. He was back in time. He didn't miss anything. But again, one, we know your body doesn't recover the same way in the air. We just know it. It's fact. That is some science. You don't recover the same way in the air. It is stressful to fly. There is a wear and tear on the body. And for a guy that was going into a matchup, it's like anything, man. If you stay up late tonight, you can probably be pretty effective at your job tomorrow. You can probably be just about the best Donnovan Bennett you can be, right? You can get by. You've done it before. You know you can go to that version of yourself, and you know you can succeed at your job. But if you got a big day tomorrow at work, if tomorrow is an important-ass day at work and you cannot mess around, you cannot play, you're probably going to treat things a little differently. And I'll say this. If that's a playoff game, I don't think Kyle Lowry goes. I really don't. I don't think he makes that trip, man. I don't.
I mean, this is the city where Vince Carter went and got
Right.
his
We don't need any more of this
diploma.
here. We don't need any more of these trips.
I think.
All right, to universities. You know
but
what?
think-
if
think
they
of-
let high school players back in,
Think about
I vote all high school players.
Think about the player that we're talking about. He felt no type of way about playing golf, hurting himself allegedly, who knows when the timeline was, then not only playing in the All-Star game, doing the three-point shootout.
Yes.
So those are physical things that were unnecessary. So you really think that he's not going to go to the national championship game and sit in Gucci Row?
No, he should be better at that. That's the thing.
shoot-
We're supposed to learn from our mistakes.
But your point is if you don't think he would have won if it's a playoff game.
I don't.
And I think about the person we're talking about. Think about the player that we're talking
Kyle
about.
Lowry doesn't care about your feelings. Raptors fans.
He would have gone, no question. And if you think he would have gone, he would have probably gone for the Villanova shoot around and the game just to spite you. And I am not comparing the motivations or reasons to go. So, blog boys, Twitter fingers, relax.
Whoa!
But no, I'm not talking to you. But there was a stretch of games earlier in this year where DeMar DeRozan was on a tear, was player of the week in the NBA virtually nonstop. And he was going back to California after every game to handle personal situations that nobody knew about until they did know about it. So I'm just saying we can't just play the result because Lowry played bad and say it's because he flew to Texas and back.
No, we can. I'm doing that. Like, we can because I'm doing it. Had he played poorly or had he played well, I would have said no big deal. But he played poorly, so it matters.
But is it is it leaving when your job is to play in the NBA,
flat.
or is it why he went?
No, because it's not about any of that. Well, why he went, I think, is a little.
If he went for a family reason, is it okay?
Yes, of course.
So your body doesn't know why you got on a flight and came back?
But I'm just saying that the reason definitely matters here. The reason absolutely matters. If you're going home because of a family emergency and you need to see a sick loved one, then I can't criticize you for doing that because that matters. Family matters more than a basketball game.
But we're only criticizing because we think the flight had an impact on your play.
Here's all I'm saying. We've watched Kyle Lowry all season. You just mentioned that the last show we did, we talked about at least it's good Kyle. At least good Kyle has been around. Good Kyle is here late in the season. He's shooting the ball well. He looks fresh. He looks rested. He looks incredible. He's popping. Kyle Lowry tonight looked flat. It looked like he had no legs. His jump shot had no legs. When he tried to go into the paint, it looked like he had no legs. He was flat-footed on defense. His body reeked of a guy who was tired. I'm sorry, I can't ignore what I saw in that game. I can't ignore the fact that Kyle Lowry, in a season where he's been incredible and looked rested throughout the entire season, all of a sudden one night, not on the end of a back-to-back, looked that dead-legged. His legs looked like Josh Donaldson's throwing arm a couple of days ago. Like he couldn't make a play.
How many people tweeting now that Kyle Lowry shouldn't have gone tweeted that last night when they saw him there?
First of all, I think everybody was in bed because when you saw him there, it was at the end of the game and the national championship game didn't start until what?
9:20.
No, midnight. It didn't start until midnight. And then when it did start, it was over at halftime. So most people decided to go to bed and didn't even know Kyle Lowry was there.
Did you watch the game in its entirety?
I did actually.
How dare you? You had to do good show.
I did do good show.
Where are your priorities? Why are you up that late?
You know why? Because I was doing my best preparation possible, which is what Kyle Lowry should have been doing.
You could have done it in the morning.
I did do some in the morning. But guess what? I work at night and I put in work. Kyle Lowry going and visiting with Jay Wright is not work. Me staying up late so I can provide the people with takes and opinions, informed opinions, is important. It means that I forego some sleep. It means that I make some sacrifices. It means I don't go to the bar to watch it with some friends. It means I watch it in the comfy confines of my own home. So what the damn thing is over. I'm not getting on a plane and stressing when we feel some turbulence. It's that I go to sleep and I tuck myself into bed and I nod right off and I wake up when that alarm goes off.
He's a proud Villanova alum.
Sure.
They're not going to make the finals every year.
I'm a proud Carleton alum. I'm not flying on private jets. Can't afford it.
Because you're not that proud of an alum and they're not proud of you.
Alum. What? They followed me on Twitter.
Wait, you want to talk about work? We had a 9:30 talent town hall. I didn't see you there. That's work. Why'd you stay up and watch the national championship game?
I did.
Where are your priorities?
I did. My priorities were in check.
Kyle Lowry, you're broadcasting?
They had a stream, and I streamed that meeting.
You're supposed to be here in person.
Because it's 2018. Who says who? Why would they make the stream available?
If you weren't supposed to be in here in person, why were there 40 people sitting there? Why don't we always take the stream?
Okay. By the way, there's 53 seconds left in the fourth quarter of the Boston-Milwaukee game. The Bucks are up 3. If you watched the Bucks the other night against the Denver Nuggets, you know that no lead is safe. Because they choked away an 8-point lead with 1 minute left. So I'm pretty sure the Bucks can find a way to lose this game up 101-98 against the Celtics. Hold on to your butts, Raptors fans. Hold on to your butts because tomorrow night can get really, really interesting with 1 3-point shot for the Boston Celtics. If you're looking at this Cleveland game after tonight, because again, I kind of do this where there was this exercise. It was actually on the Bill Simmons report, and I thought it was a really good take, which is that when he looks at players in the draft and he looks at signings teams make. He tries to figure how they look in a Golden State Cleveland series, right? How do you fit in? What role would you play in this series? It's why the Jordan Bell draft pick, when they bought that from the Bulls, made some sense. Because it was a guy that can play defense out to the three-point line, defend multiple positions, switch out on guys, block shots. He fits in. When you look at the Raptors right now, who are the guys to you out of the bench or starters that you don't think are going to fit into this? Or do you think that they're still going to be running this 10-man unit?
Well, I think they're going to run a 10-man unit because they have to. Because at this point, they're not the Warriors or the Cavs.
Who belongs, though? Who belongs to you?
In
like
that series, in the NBA Finals
let's
series?
put it this way, because in my opinion, the Raptors, if they play the Cleveland Cavaliers, have to make the adjustment that they made against the Bucks, except for they can't wait to make it. They got to pull Jonas Valanciunas from the starting lineup game 1. He does not start. Jonas Valanciunas is now a matchup center who plays when Tristan Thompson plays or when Zizic plays. If one of those two guys is on the floor, Jonas Valanciunas can check in. If the Raptors are up, they can put Jonas Valanciunas in. But as of right now, versus those starters, when Kevin Love is the 5, he can't play against Kevin Love. When Jeff Green is the 5, he can't play against Jeff Green. I'm sorry. It's just not working for you. You got to adjust. You start with Pascal Siakam at the 4 and Serge Ibaka at the 5, and the rest of the starters go accordingly.
I disagree. I think that's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Bucks score.
It's
98-103. 31 seconds left. I don't know if this is legal, what we're doing. I think it is. Tell us to stop. Basketball, NBA. You think it's cutting off your nose to spite your face is what you're saying before I rudely cut you off.
Yeah, because I don't those. It would be one thing if my other options are more appealing. I just don't think
you
that
don't think
they
what
are.
I just outlined to you is more appealing against that starting 5. I'm not saying Jonas Valanciunas can't play at all in the series. I'm just saying that you have to be smarter with your matchups. That clearly trying to dictate the size and the interior presence of Jonas Valanciunas on the offensive end to me it's been proven wrong. It's been proven that it doesn't, not wrong, but it's been proven that against that Cavaliers team, against LeBron James and his basketball genius, and against Kevin Love's ability to find the right spots on the floor and stretch it out or take him inside, that is just not effective, and that you have to use him in the right spots.
I think you are you talk about playing the Cavs game, but not as well as them. I think if you revert to a starting lineup that mirrors them, you're playing their game with pieces that aren't as good.
You
For
know
me,
what's playing their game?
I pound it inside to JV. I tell DeMar DeRozan to go right to the rack, and I'm trying to get Kevin Love in foul trouble and get him out of the game for long stretches. I think that's your only hope, because just running up and down the court.
So why hasn't it worked?
Well, because they haven't done that. We talked
But
about
they
the
have.
fact
Jonas Valanciunas had second most points on the team tonight.
how many
They fed him the ball. He had tons of touches.
how many fouls did Kevin Love have?
But he's not fouling him because they're doubling him.
But we talked about DeRozan not getting to the rack. We talked about Kyle Lowry not getting anywhere.
But JV
into the
was
paint.
going to the paint. He was in the deep paint. He shot 1 3 tonight, but he didn't make his living tonight off of jump shots. Jonas Valanciunas wasn't settling for a mid-range game. He was in the paint, not getting fouled. They're knowing, like, don't foul JV. Don't put him on the line because he's a really good free throw shooter. But we got to go.
It's not just about JV. It's about a mindset that the entire team is going to continue to drive.
Whatever your crunch time lineup is against the Cavs, that should be your almost identical to your starting lineup, in my opinion, when it comes to your front court. Because the Cavaliers have proven they're going to run you out of the gym with JV on the floor with those units. Raps lose. We're back tomorrow night. Hopefully it's a more positive show, because tonight was really not that fun to scream at everybody and be upset. I hope you enjoyed the venting. I hope you'll join us again. I hope you'll tweet at us using the hashtag SNRaps and tweet us at JD Bunkis, at Donnovan Bennett. I did that pretty good. Camera left, camera right. Yeah, it's pretty good. This is Raptors Postgame on Sportsnet.ca.
Go Bucks.